The night shift was always the slowest on Outpost Zephrian. Tucked at the far edge of Imperial space, the station floated in orbit above a cold, uninhabited moon, surrounded by the silence of a starfield so distant it felt like the galaxy had forgotten it. Commander Rovak Fail leaned back in his warm command chair, one hand wrapped around a lukewarm cup of brine brew, the other drumming on the armrest. Years of watching for smugglers, asteroid drifts, and nothing else had turned even his sharp instincts dull with routine, but tonight was different. It started with a flicker. A low-frequency ping from the deep-range array trembled across the console like a shiver under the skin. Just one anomaly. One spike in the endless tide of static. The tech on watch, Ensign Marek, glanced up from his console and yawned. "Sensor ghost," he said casually. "Probably solar wind." Rovak didn't answer. He had already stood up and crossed the room to the main sensor bank. His eyes narrowed at the numbers scrolling across the display. The frequency was steady, not erratic like background interference. The signature was sharp, too sharp for cosmic noise. It pulsed like a heartbeat, precise and deliberate. "Run a diagnostic," he said quietly. Marek hesitated. "Sir, the system." "Do it," Rovak snapped. The lights in the control room dimmed slightly as the station rerouted power to verify the sensor logs. Across the room, Lieutenant Kinara, the communications officer, looked up with a frown. "Comm lines are clean. I'm not getting echoes or drift." "Whatever it is, it's real," a low alarm chirped. The main screen updated. Something had dropped out of warp. Just one object. Small. Fast. And close. The room fell silent as the visual feed engaged. A moment later, the image appeared on the screen. A ship hovered in open space just outside the outer perimeter. It wasn't Zephrian. It wasn't any known design. Its hull was a deep matte black, shaped like an arrowhead, sharp-edged and smooth, without seams or markings. No lights, no engine glow, no visible weapons. It didn't rotate or drift with local gravity. It simply hovered. KY Nara whispered, "What kind of ship just floats like that? Maybe a stealth vessel?" Marek offered, his voice unsure. Rovak ignored them. He stepped closer to the screen, staring into the dark geometry of the unknown vessel. His fingers curled slowly at his sides. There was no sense of propulsion, no exhaust, no identifying transponder. And yet it had arrived perfectly, like it had known exactly where to come and how to stop without alerting any of their early warning systems. Then something chilled him more than anything else. "It's not scanning us," he murmured. KY Nara turned. "Sir?" He didn't blink. "It's not doing anything. No active sweeps, no comms, not even a passive scan. Nothing." "Maybe it's dead?" Marek suggested, trying to sound logical. Rovak shook his head. "No. Dead ships don't drop out of warp with precision and stop just short of our outer boundary. It didn't scan us. It didn't move. It just stared." The silence in the room deepened. The outpost, usually humming with idle chatter and quiet routines, felt heavy now, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Every officer in the control room was focused on that single point in space. The ship. The Ghost. KY Nara single quotes S console beeped softly. "Sir, it's emitting something." "What kind of signal?" Rovak asked. She leaned closer to her screen. "Adjusting filters. It's not a message, it's telemetry. But not in any format I recognize. It's like it's watching us. Not just the station. Everything. Planetary orbit, defense grid, even internal systems." Marek looked pale. "Sir, should we alert High Command?" Rovak didn't move. His eyes were still fixed on the ship. Something deep in his gut, older than training, older than protocol, was screaming. Yes, he said at last. Send an alert to Central Command. Code Black. Kinara's hands trembled as she input the emergency codes. Outside, the unknown ship remained still. No movement. No light. No sound. Just watching. The alert to Central Command had been sent, but no reply came. Not immediately. Not within the standard response window. Not even after they repeated the signal twice. Inside Outpost Zephrian, the tension grew thick enough to taste. The low hum of the station systems felt louder now. Rovak Fail stood at the main viewport, arms folded tight across his chest, staring out at the unknown ship. It hadn't moved, it hadn't spoken, but its presence was a gravity while pulling all reason into its silence. Still no response? He asked without turning. Ky Nara shook her head from the cum station. Nothing, sir. Cums are clean. Central silent. Relay buoy malfunction? Negative. We piggybacked the signal across 3 backup satellites. Everyone confirmed the transmission. Then they're not ignoring us, he said. They just don't know how to respond. The ensign at sensors swallowed hard. Sir, it's still broadcasting. Same silent telemetry, still mapping everything. Orbital data, fleet traffic, even our station's energy systems. And it's getting deeper. What do you mean deeper? I mean, it's reading through our layers, deck layouts, crew biometrics, individual heat signatures. It just scanned your bloodstream, Commander. Marek stared at his screen like it was reading his thoughts, and now it's scanning mine. Rovak turned slowly, his voice steady but low. Lock down internal systems. Disconnect every non-essential subsystem. Go to hardened core. Sir, Kinara hesitated. That would cut us off from the outer net, from Central Command. They're not helping us. And whatever that thing is out there, it doesn't need the outer net. It already sees us. Alarms clicked on one by one as systems disconnected from the network. The lights dimmed. Air recyclers shifted to manual regulation. Zephrian outpost suddenly felt like a metal coffin adrift in the dark. The unknown ship remained exactly where it was, unmoving. UNBLINKING.ROVAK stepped back toward his command chair but didn't sit. I want a tactical overlay. Simulate a weapon strike. What if it's preparing to attack? Kinara tapped furiously, running the sim through the defense AI. The screen displayed projections. No shield disruption detected, she said. But, sir, that's the problem. Explain. There's no targeting signature, no power buildup, no radiation spikes. Even cloaked ships leave some trace. This one, it's like it's already inside our systems. Like it doesn't need weapons. In the way we understand them, that doesn't make sense. It does, Marek whispered. If it's not a ship in the way we think of ships. What if it's something else? Rovak raised an eyebrow. Such as? An autonomous scout, or worse, an intelligence vessel. Not built to fight, but to understand, to measure. Kinara looked up from her panel. Sir, this ship knows us better than we know ourselves. It's not looking for targets. It's studying responses. It wants to know how we panic. The room fell into a hush again. Every console continued streaming. The same data, the unknown vessel had mapped every weapons platform, every orbital dock, every satellite network within 100 million kilometers. And now it was looking inward, not at ships. Not at defenses. At people. New contact, shouted Marek suddenly. Dropping out of warp rear quadrant, 25 degrees azimuth? Friendly? Rovak asked. No identification code. Similar. Profile. Kinara's voice dropped to a whisper. Sir, it's another one. A second black ship, identical to the first, blinked into existence just outside visual range. It didn't glide in or slow down. It simply appeared, and still. No sound, no message, no reaction. Rovak single quotes as breath caught. His instincts screamed again, louder now. He had trusted those instincts all his life, even when the data said otherwise. And tonight, they told him one thing with crystal clarity: this was not an accident. This was not exploration. This was not a mistake. This was Stage 2. Nara stiffened. Sir, sensor interference just spiked. Long-range scanning is being overwritten. Overwritten? They're rewriting the return algorithms. I don't even know how they're accessing that layer. Marek pushed his screen forward. Sir, I think they're cutting us off from the fleet, masking us. Our signature is being swallowed. On the screen, the second ship turned just slightly. A subtle shift, enough to change its orientation toward the station. Enough to feel like an acknowledgement. Rovak stared at the formation of two ships. Perfect symmetry. Perfect silence. No shields raised. No weapons primed. And yet every cell in his body told him that they were in more danger than ever before. Then the lights flickered just once, and every display on the bridge went dark. No alarms. No power surge. Just darkness. Then a voice spoke. Clear, smooth, undeniably. Human, Commander Rovak Thale. We've been expecting you. Commander Rovak Thale stood in the darkness, heart pounding, eyes struggling to adjust. The voice still echoed through the control room, calm yet invasive, as if it hadn't come through speakers at all, but had risen directly from the air. Commander Rovak Thale, we've been expecting you. The emergency lights kicked in a pale red glow barely strong enough to outline the crew's faces. All displays remained offline. No systems responded to input. Kinara tapped her console in growing frustration, then slammed her palm against it. No response. Mainframe is dead. Power relays aren't even trying to boot. Backup core? Rovak asked. They already reached it. It's not just shut down. It's bypassed. As if it doesn't even exist anymore. The silence returned. Then the voice came again, this time louder, closer. We mean you no harm. If we intended your destruction, you would already be vapor. Trace it, Rovak ordered sharply. Nara didn't move. Lieutenant, he barked. I can't, she said. Her voice was trembling. It's not on any channel. There is no source. It's not broadcasting. It's embedded. What the hell does that mean? Marek's voice came from the far side of the bridge. Sir, it's not an audio signal. It's directly in our minds. They all froze. Explain. Somehow. They're using our neural rhythms. Brainwave mimicry. They're speaking through us. They're hijacking cognition itself. As if to prove his point, the voice spoke again, this time from every direction at once. Do not be afraid. We are here to observe, to measure, to evaluate readiness. The emergency lights flickered again, then shut off completely. Total blackness swallowed the control room. For the first time in Rovak's career, he felt real fear, not of death, but of insignificance. He wasn't staring down an enemy fleet. He wasn't preparing a battle plan. He was inside something far more terrifying, a test he didn't understand, against a power he couldn't quantify. They're inside us, Kinara whispered. Not just the systems, not just the station, us. Rovak took a slow breath. This is psychological warfare. Stay calm. Remember your training. Don't respond emotionally. They want to see fear. But even as he said it, he knew it wasn't just fear they wanted. It was comprehension. It was pattern recognition. It was to see whether Imperial minds could adapt. The emergency backup display finally came online, a single, Flickering frame. It showed a new object now orbiting the moon below. A third ship. Marek's voice cracked. Sir, same profile. Same. Emissions. It's forming a triangle. Formation? No, Kinara breathed. Not a military one. Something else. Something symbolic. The three ships shifted into perfect alignment with the station at their center. Then, the stars themselves seemed to warp behind them. Faint rings of distortion shimmered in the vacuum gravitational ripples like nothing they had ever witnessed. A soft hum began in the control room. But it wasn't from the machines. It was in their ears. In their skulls. Incoming data stream. Marek choked out. But I don't know how we're receiving it. Text began flooding the last working screen, symbols, language, equations that shifted faster than any eye could read. The script bent and twisted, forming brief images before warping into something else. Star maps, atomic blueprints, genetic code, unknown architecture. And then it stopped. A single line remained on the screen. You are not ready. Rovak stared at it. Ky Nara was pale, visibly shaking. Sir, this isn't just a scan. It's a judgment. Of what? Our civilization. Our potential. Our choices. Marek turned slowly toward Rovak. Sir, what if they've done this before? Two. Others? That was the question no one wanted to ask, but every one of them had thought it. The Imperial Archives spoke often of barren systems, failed colonies, mysteriously collapsed civilizations. Maybe they hadn't collapsed. Maybe they'd been evaluated. Sir, Kinara said suddenly, we've got movement. On the display. All three ships shifted orientation. Together. Deliberate. As if acknowledging the message had been delivered. As if preparing for the next phase. We're not ready? Rovak muttered. Ready for what? Then came the final signal, visual only. A fragment of video, barely 10 seconds long. On screen, a planet. Green, blue, thriving. Then, a burst of light. Instant obliteration. The screen went black. No sound. Just darkness. And silence. Rovak stepped back. His breath shallow. That's not a threat, he whispered. That's history. Something they've already done. Kinara nodded slowly. It's a warning. The emergency lights flickered once, then stayed on. Systems restored. Power returned. The station came alive again. The ships were gone, completely. Vanished. No warp signatures. No aftershock. No trace. Only. The data stream remained, and the words still burned onto the last screen. We are watching. The Empire responded with fire. 2 hours after the anomaly vanished, the Imperial dreadnought Valkara emerged from hyperspace in low orbit over Zephrian outpost, trailing a formation of 12 warcruisers and 34 strike escorts. The command crew aboard the station had barely begun restoring full operations when the hangar shuddered from the pressure wave of mass displacers locking in position. Above them, Imperial War Doctrine was preparing for the only thing it ever truly trusted. Fa. Show of force. Commander Rovak Fail watched the operation unfold from the command viewport. Cruisers fell into combat wedges, power signatures glowing across the sensor grid like red suns. He should have felt comforted. The sheer size of the Valkara was enough to blot out half the visible sky. The Empire had sent its finest. So why did the back of his neck itch with dread? Fleet Command is on Secure Line 1, Kinara said, her voice flat. Admiral Trevak wants to speak to you personally. Rovak turned slowly toward the console. Put him through. A moment later, the face of Admiral Trevak appeared, flickering through encrypted hololink. The Admiral's expression was tight and cold, as if carved from stone. Commander Thale, he said without greeting. Report status. Rovak didn't flinch. We've restored 87% of systems. Internal integrity is solid. Long-range sensors are recalibrating. And sir, there's something you need to see. Later, Trevek snapped. Your station's proximity to the anomaly makes you a key observer. You will submit all sensor logs to Naval Command immediately. Already done, Admiral, Kinara interjected quietly. Trevak didn't acknowledge her. His eyes remained locked on Rovak. What exactly did you encounter, Commander? Rovak hesitated. There was no way to explain it without sounding insane. We encountered ... intelligence, he said finally. Not just a ship, not a weapon. Something watching, learning, evaluating us. And you allowed it to escape, Trevak said sharply. We were not equipped to resist it, Admiral. Nonsense. You didn't act. We will. The channel cut off. Outside. The Valkara powered its primary array. The sky turned white. Sir, Marek called from his console. They're charging planet breakers. What? Rovak spun around. Why, there's no target. Fleet Command has issued a wide-field threat elimination protocol. They're wiping the system clean. Sterilization orders. They think. Something's still here. Or worse, Kinara whispered. They think it left something behind. As the Valkara prepared its strike, the formation of Imperial ships locked into a position around Zephrian's moon. Automated systems initialized. An AI target pattern called Spear of Justice, a strategy reserved for planetary extermination. Sir, Kinara said suddenly, I'm getting residual data spikes, background radiation. They're not natural, explain. Something ... invisible. Something is here. Phase locked, cloaked at a subdimensional level. The main sensor screen lit up with distorted readings. Lines of code scrolled rapidly, then stopped. Just 4 words remained. Do not escalate further. The room dropped into silence. Outside. The dreadnought's primary cannon discharged. A beam of contained gravity erupted toward the moon's surface. But halfway down, the beam broke apart. Shattered. As if it had struck an invisible barrier. Impossible, Marek whispered. Nothing came then every ship in the Imperial formation went dark. In a single breath. 50 warships lost all power. They floated like corpses. Systems failure, Kinara cried. Total shutdown across the fleet. Our systems are untouched. They're targeting Imperial vessels only. Valkara drifted, its massive bulk now inert and silent. Panic crackled across open channels. Officers shouted into dead comms. Gunships drifted without control. Shields collapsed. Reactors fell cold. Rovak stood in stunned silence as new icons appeared on the screen. Not one, not 300s, small dark ships decloaking across the system. Each perfectly still, each holding position at mathematically perfect intervals. A net. They had been surrounded, not by force. But by patience. By planning. On the edge of the screen. A single line blinked. This is your second lesson. Rovak's voice cracked the silence. What was the first? Kinara swallowed. The scan, the judgment, the message. And now? Marek said it softly. The consequences. At that moment, the screen shifted. One of the cloaked ships moved. Fast. Too fast. It slid between 2 Imperial corvettes and hovered between them. Then emitted a short-range pulse. The corvettes didn't explode. They just ... Stopped. Every light went dead. Escape pods ejected without command. Weapons disassembled themselves in mid-flight. No. One died, but the ships were undone. Disassembled at a molecular level. Non-violently. Admiral. Trevek's voice finally came through raw. Angry, desperate. Zephrian outpost, this is Trevek. We are under assault by unknown forces. They are not engaging, they are undoing us. I repeat, we are being unmade. The voice cut out. Silence again. the net of ships began to move. Not to attack, not to invade, but to position. A perfect grid around the moon, an outpost dot, then another signal. You were warned. Rovak sat slowly in his chair. The Empire had come with war, and the enemy had come with mathematics. The Empire had always believed war was the final word. A fleet, a barrage, a roar of power that shattered cities and burned defiance from the stars. That was how it had ruled for centuries. The fear of overwhelming force was written into every imperial doctrine, into every child's education, into every admiral's oath. But out here, on the far edge of known space, where the stars were cold and distant, that belief had finally met something it couldn't intimidate. Commander Rovak. Thale stood motionless as the enemy formation shifted into perfect symmetry above the moon. It was not an attack pattern. It was a statement, a design. Like art carved across the void. The Imperial dreadnought Valkara floated powerless beside its crippled escort line. No weapons, no shields, not even life support. And yet, none of the unknown ships had fired a single shot. They had neutralized the fleet with elegance, with efficiency. Like surgeons, not soldiers. Status on the fleet? Rovak asked, his voice low. Nara scanned the feed. Still offline. All ships remain dark. No self-repair functions engaged. It's like their core systems were rewritten, or politely turned off. And us? We're untouched. They left us on, deliberately. They want us to watch, Marek said. No one argued. Outside, two of the black ships moved forward, aligning themselves on either side of the dreadnought like pallbearers beside a coffin. Then, with a shimmer of distorted light, they extended long beams of blue-white energy tractor fields, but not of any known type. They didn't drag the tube dreadnought. They lifted it. Slowly. Gracefully. And then, piece by piece, the Valkara began to disassemble. Not violently. Not with force. Its hull panels folded away like petals opening. The superstructure pulled itself apart with mechanical grace. Command towers retracted. Engine cores separated like atoms peeling from a molecule. The process was silent.
Reverent, like a burial. They're taking it apart?
Kinara asked in disbelief. They're studying it, Marek whispered. Like an archaeologist studies a ruin. Across the command deck, lights flickered again. Another transmission. You teach with conquest, we teach with restraint. The words echoed across the screen, then vanished. They're not here to fight, Rovak muttered. They're here to correct us. A second message followed. This is Lesson 3. Outside, the net of ships pulsed once with radiant energy. On the moon's surface, the Imperial listening post, a hardened military installation, shimmered and vanished. Not exploded. Not vaporized. Simply removed. As if the very concept of it had been erased. That wasn't a weapon, Kinara breathed. That was spatial redaction, controlled physics manipulation. They erased an object, Marek added, not destroyed it. Rewrote reality until it never existed. The outpost shuddered. Inbound transmission, Kinara said. Source? Directed audio. Inside our station. No comms lines used. A voice filled the air. Not from the speakers. From within the room. Commander Rovak Thale. We are not your enemy. We are not invaders. We are your mirror, and what we see is not ready. Rovak stepped forward. What do you want? Silence. Then the voice returned, softer now. We want you to remember. The control room dimmed. Lights flickered. The viewport blurred, then shifted. Not a malfunction. A memory. Projected across the station. A vision unfolded. The Imperial homeworld. Cities glowing beneath starlight. Children laughing beneath orbital towers. Scientists sharing discoveries. Architects shaping art from stone. And then the war. The conquest. Otherworlds burning. Cultures crushed. History rewritten to favor victors. The vision ended, and the voice whispered, "This is who you were. And this is what you became. Why show us this?" Rovak asked, "Because you have forgotten. And what is forgotten must be remembered before it can change." A new window opened on the screen. A list, a long one, dozens of Empire-controlled worlds, fleets, names of governors, military bases, coordinates. KY Nara scrolled. "This is our entire infrastructure." "No," Marek said. "This is just the beginning. This is what they already know." The list updated again. More data. Personal logs. Communications from Imperial officers. Hidden files from command networks. "They've been watching us," Rovak said. "Longer than we realized," the voice answered. 47 cycles. You called us myth, primitive, extinct, while we observed. Studied, waited, hoping. Hoping for what? That you would evolve. Another image filled the screen. Not a starship. A city. Impossibly vast. Spanning a continent. Floating in clouds of light. Humanity's capital. Earth. Kinara breathed. "The Terran core," the voice confirmed. "You thought us isolated. We were never isolated. We were patient. And now patience is finished." The final image. A symbol. A circle made of light, split down the center. Beneath it, one line. "Diplomacy begins when denial ends." The unknown ships held formation. Silent. Waiting. Watching. And above them, far beyond the moon, another signature blinked into sensor range.
Larger. Faster. Older. KY Nara looked up. "Sir?"
"I think the real ship is arriving now." Rovak didn't answer. He just stared at the stars and waited. The stars twisted. Not in the way light bends around a ship entering hyperspace, and not the way heat distorts air above an engine flare. This was different, wrong. A ripple moved across the black like the sky itself was stretching. Then the ripple split open. It was not a wormhole. It was not hyperspace. It was a scar-clean, precise, deliberate cut into the universe by something that did not ask permission from physics. And from that scar, the real ship came through. The command deck of Zephrian outpost fell into stunned silence. Every alarm that should have screamed stayed quiet. Every sensor that should have registered a hostile presence remained blank. Because the ship that emerged from the tier in space did not announce itself. It arrived, and that was enough. Commander. Rovak Thale stood frozen at the main viewport, eyes wide, mouth half open. The others didn't speak. Couldn't. Even Marek, who never stopped muttering under pressure, had fallen into a kind of reverent stillness. The ship was massive. Not in size alone, but in presence. Its design defied Imperial logic. It had no obvious engines, no visible armor plating, no protruding weapons. It was shaped like a layered arc, formed from material so dark it absorbed the starlight around it. Thin bands of white gold light traced its edges, but they pulsed irregularly, as if alive. At the center, a singular glowing eye, not mechanical, not biological, just. Watching. KY Nara finally managed a whisper. "What is that?" Rovak's throat was dry. "That is not a warship. Then what is it?" His answer came without hesitation. A judgment. On the main display, Zephrian sensors failed. Completely. The ship's mass was unreadable. Its energy signature was infinite or non-existent. Scans bounced off it like pebbles thrown at a black ocean. The net of smaller vessels that had surrounded the system now began to rotate around the new arrival. They moved with perfect timing, forming spirals, arcs, even geometric constructs that made no military sense but radiated precision beyond comprehension. And then, from the central vessel came the voice. But this time, it was different, not just in their heads, not just in their ears. This time, It spoke to reality itself. Imperial Fleet Designation Zephrian. This is the vessel concordance of the United Terran Communion. We have completed your evaluation. The voice was neither male nor female. It was not even human, and yet unmistakably born of humanity, of something that had once been human and had become more. Evaluation? Rovak managed. The voice continued. Your civilization has reached the convergence threshold. Your behaviors, values, and long-term trajectories have been analyzed. Your response to contact was aggression. Your doctrines remain rooted in fear and hierarchy. Your species remains unstable. Kinara's voice was shaking. Sir, they're sentencing us. The voice shifted tone, like sunlight dimming behind clouds. Yet a fragment within your structure has demonstrated variance. Commander Rovak fail. Your decisions delayed conflict. Your restraint was noted. Your station remains active as a result. Rovak felt like ice was crawling across his skin. You're watching us individually. Yes, the voice replied. We see the Empire. But we also see the people within it. On the screen, the massive Terran ship began projecting something. A field. No a memory. Not theirs. Humanity. S. Images poured across the display. Ancient wars on Earth. Cities rebuilt. Worlds terraformed. Diplomacy forged in the ruins of genocide. An alliance of species, not by conquest, but by shared loss. And then came the other images. Empires, like the Zephrians, who had failed to adapt. Their ships, their cities, their legacies reduced to dust. We have seen this pattern before, the voice said. It ends in extinction. Or transformation. Rovak swallowed hard. And if we choose extinction, we will not intervene again. We will let entropy claim you as it has claimed others. This is your only contact, Kinara gasped. They've only sent one of these ships before, ever. This isn't contact. This is mercy. Suddenly, the projection changed. A new map appeared, a star field, but unfamiliar, systems never charted. By Imperial scouts, worlds filled with unfamiliar names. Then a mark blinked on one of them. A pulsar world, pulsing with white light. You are invited to witness, the voice said. A council of species will convene. The Zephrian Empire may send one delegate. No weapons, no ships, just listening. Marek leaned forward. A council? They want to give us a seat at the table, Kinara whispered. No, Rovak corrected. They want us to understand the table has existed long before we noticed it. The transmission ended. The ship, Concordance, did not leave. It remained. And as it hovered above the crippled Imperial fleet, the smaller vessels began vanishing, one by one folding back into the dark. But the message had already been delivered. The Empire had been weighed, and they had been found lacking. The Empire's pride was crumbling, and its silence was louder than any war cry. For the first time in recorded history, the High Command had nothing to say. From orbit, the vast black ship Concordance still hovered above Zephrian outpost, unmoving, unthreatening, yet unmistakably superior. Below it, the once mighty Imperial fleet now floated in powerlessness, a formation of dreadnoughts, warcruisers, and gunships reduced to useless steel, not by force, not by damage, but by the sheer will of a civilization that hadn't even fired a single destructive shot. Inside Zephrian's control room, no one spoke for minutes. Commander Rovak Thale stood with his hands gripping the edge of the command table, knuckles pale. He wasn't processing victory or defeat anymore. He was processing the one thing the Empire never trained him for. Insignificance. Nara was the first to move. Her hands trembled as she brought up the latest transmission logs. Sir, High Command is requesting visual report. They've seen the preliminary data, but they want to hear from you directly. Rovak didn't move, sir. He let out a long breath on screen. The display lit up with the image of High Admiral Norix, a man of ancient reputation and unmatched brutality. His face filled the screen, grim, furious, and aging beneath the weight of an empire suddenly unsure of its place in the universe. "Commander Thale," Norix barked. "Explain what I am seeing. Is this some kind of technological illusion? Has the enemy disabled our sensors?" Rovak straightened. "No, sir. What you're seeing is real." "Then tell me why an entire sector fleet has been paralyzed without engagement. Tell me how our dreadnought was dissected like a child's toy. Tell me how you, a border outpost officer, are still operational while 57 warships drift." "Like corpses." Rovak's voice was steady. "Because I didn't fight them." Norix's eyes narrowed. "What did you say?" "I followed protocol. I reported the anomaly. I initiated passive observation. I made no aggressive moves. You disobeyed Standing Order 71 preemptive response to unidentified threats. And by doing so, I may have prevented our annihilation." Norix leaned forward on his end of the channel. "Do you understand what this means, Commander? The Council will want blood. They'll demand retaliation. They'll demand we show strength." Rovak didn't hesitate. "Then the Council will doom us all." Kanara flinched behind him. Marek just stared at the floor. The Admiral's voice dropped to a cold, dangerous whisper. "You're saying we submit." "I'm saying we survive." Norix's signal cut off. The silence returned. Outside, the ship known only as Concordance began to shift. Not moving through space, but shifting inward, as if parts of it folded inside itself, revealing a structure far more complex than any ship had the right to be. It was alive with symbols, geometric patterns, language that wasn't. Language architecture that felt like memory. Then a new message blinked across. "Every functioning display on Zephrian. One will come. One will listen. One will return." Marek leaned in. "What does it mean?" Rovak replied quietly. "They're giving us one chance. One representative. One voice to speak for the entire empire." Kanara's breath caught. Who would they even choose? Then the lights dimmed. Every console froze, and one word appeared, burning across the command table in bright, unmistakable white colon ROVAK.KY. Nara gasped. Marek stepped back in disbelief. "They chose you," she whispered. ROVAK stared at the name, his name, projected not by his systems, but by theirs. "This isn't just a message," he said. "It's an invitation." A new icon blinked on the station's long-range scanner. It wasn't a ship. It was a corridor. A stable tunnel in space itself. Forming just outside the perimeter, a gate built of light and impossible mathematics. "Sir," Kanara whispered, "they've opened a path." "To where?" "I think to their world." Outside, the small escort ships that had surrounded Concordance began to vanish one by one, folding away like shadows fleeing the dawn. The central ship, however, remained, its enormous structure now lit from within, glowing softly as if waiting. Transport pod emerged from its underside, drifting toward Zephrian. Slow, graceful, unarmed. It pulsed gently with each meter, responding to gravitational forces as if dancing with the laws of physics. "They're coming for you," Marek said, eyes wide. "They're sending a diplomatic escort." Rovak looked down at the words still pulsing on the command table. His name. Not his rank. Not his station. Him. He turned toward his crew. "Tell High Command the Empire has been summoned," he said. "And tell them that I'm going." "Commander," Kanara said softly, "what if you don't come back?" He didn't look away from the viewport. "Then tell them this is what it means to be human." The transport vessel docked gently with the station. No weapons. No guards. Just a single hatch sliding open, waiting. The hatch opened with no hiss, no mechanical clank, no display of power, just silence. As if the door had been waiting for centuries to welcome one specific guest. Commander Rovak Thale stepped forward alone. No honor. Guard. No protective escort. No. Imperial delegation trailing behind him. Just a man in a gray uniform walking toward a future his entire civilization didn't yet understand. As he crossed the threshold into the Terran vessel, the lights shifted, not bright, not blinding, but soft, diffused like sunlight passing through still water. The corridor ahead was smooth, seamless, made of material his boots didn't even echo against. It felt less like metal and more like intention made solid. Behind him, the door sealed. With a whisper. Ahead, the ship unfolded like a memory being remembered. Welcome, Rovak Thale, a voice said, not spoken, but present, immediate, as if the ship itself had addressed him. He paused. Where are the crew? This vessel is operated by consciousness. Transfer. You are speaking to the ship. You single quotes read. An AI? Not artificial. Not intelligent in the way you define it. I am memory. I am ambassador. I am path. A corridor extended forward, not lit by lamps, but by shifting patterns etched into the walls, glowing faintly with what looked like living symbols. As he walked, the air around him adjusted, pressure equalized, oxygen density shifted, temperature aligned to his exact comfort. Everything. Knew him. What is this place? He asked. You are aboard Aurora, a vessel of the Terran Communion. We are here to bring understanding, if you are willing. He stopped at a circular chamber. It had no door, yet he knew instinctively he had arrived at the right place. Inside, the space opened into a dome, a viewing platform unlike anything. In Imperial design, it wasn't a room. It was a canvas of the stars. From this position, he could see the Zephrian system, the collapsed fleet, even the still hovering shape of the vast ship Concordance in orbit. But more than that, he saw past it. Far past. Space bent around the vessel, offering glimpses of other places, snapshots of systems unknown to the Empire, planets brimming with green and gold, cities suspended in atmosphere, satellites that shimmered with bioorganic metal, fleets that didn't look like warships but rather sculptures orbiting in harmony. You asked what lies beyond conquest. The voice said. I didn't ask, Rovak replied. Your kind forced the question. No, the voice corrected. Not harshly, but like a parent teaching a child. You were ready to ask. That is why you were chosen. He turned slowly. Chosen for what? A section of the wall darkened, then bloomed with holographic life. Images. They were not files. They were experiences. Memories. He saw them, humans, long ago, crawling out of a ruined earth, scarred by war, famine, greed. Their world dying beneath their feet, and yet they didn't die with it. They chose to rise, not through domination, not through force, but through unification. He watched as humanity built something new, not an empire, but a communion. He watched them find other species, not to conquer, but to heal. He saw diplomacy forged not through intimidation, but through shared trauma. Fleets sent not to destroy, but to protect fragile peace. And he saw the alternatives to. The fallen empires, the extinct WARMONGERs. The civilizations that refused to evolve. Wiped not by war, but by irrelevance. A message blinked across the stars. Outside, made of light, forming words in Rovak's native tongue. Conquest is entropy. Harmony is evolution. You are the first Imperial, the voice said, to see us not as threat, but as mirror. Rovak sat. Not because he was tired, but because the weight of it all demanded stillness. You could have destroyed us. We still could, but you didn't. Because destruction teaches nothing. Transformation requires choice. He stared at his hands. They had held weapons. They had signed execution orders. They had saluted Tyrant's Dot, but now they simply rested on his knees. So why me? The voice seemed to sigh soft and old. Because you hesitated. Rovak remembered the moment. Standing on Zephrian's bridge, watching the first ship arrive, and choosing not to fire. Not out of fear, but out of instinct. Something deep. You saw us, the voice said. And your first thought was not of war. It was of what if. He nodded slowly. What happens now? He asked. A second figure appeared, human, female, mid-30s in appearance. Dressed in deep blue robes lined with starlight. She smiled. You meet the council. He blinked. What council? Her voice was quiet, calm, steady. The one that already governs most of this galaxy. It began with silence, not the silence of space, nor the practiced hush of a diplomatic chamber. This was deeper. The kind of silence that followed extinction. The kind that felt ancient, wise, and utterly unconcerned with empires. Commander Rovak. Fail stood at the center of a structure that had no walls. The council chamber of the Terran Communion was not built of steel or glass, but of gravity, light, and memory. The floor beneath him shimmered like water, yet held his weight. The air was breathable, though no filtration systems hummed. And around him, arranged in a vast circle, floated the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Not all of them were human. Some were shapes made of light, shifting, and fluid. Some were wrapped in living armor that pulsed with internal fire. Others hovered without. Legs or faces, speaking in colors instead of words. And seated among them were humans calm, composed, and quiet, as if they had never known war. As if violence had long ago been bred out of their blood. A voice rose, not spoken, but felt. Commander Rovak Thale of the Zephrian Empire, do you understand where you are? He turned slowly. His imperial instinct screamed for formality. Bow, kneel, announce yourself. But none of those traditions belonged here. He answered honestly. No, not completely. A new voice responded, older, deeper. Then you are ready to listen. A new image formed in the center of the chamber. The Zephrian Empire, its borders marked in red, its occupied systems glowing with imperial symbols. Around it, the empty void it had always assumed was unclaimed space. Then the image zoomed out and kept zooming until red was nothing but a dot surrounded by hundreds of civilizations. Networks of stars, interlinked agreements, peaceful corridors. Of travel and trade. A galactic web. A community. We never saw this. Rovak whispered. You were not meant to, said a human delegate across from him. She had silver lines running through her skin like veins of starlight. Not until you were ready. The communion is not built through conquest, Commander. It is built through consent. A new figure appeared, a glowing entity that radiated presence without substance. It pulsed once, and the floor beneath Rovak lit up. Memories again, but not his. Not humanity's. The memories of every species. The Empire had conquered. Voices begging. Cities burning, cultures silenced. The pain was overwhelming. Enough. Rovak shouted. It stopped, but the pain lingered. Not in his mind. In his soul. He dropped to one knee, breath heavy. I didn't know. Not like this. The glowing being pulsed again. You didn't ask. A moment passed. Then another delegate. This one with skin like black stone stepped forward. You were not summoned here to be punished. That is not our way. You were brought to understand your place and to decide your path. Our place? Rovak asked. You want us to surrender? We want you to evolve. A projection rose. Two futures. One showed the Empire reduced to ruin, its fleets drifting in space, its colonies abandoned, its people scattered and broken. The other Showed integration not as rulers but as equals zephrian technology shared. Under guidance. Conquered species granted freedom. Imperial war doctrine rewritten. Warships reforged into carriers of medicine, education, diplomacy. A complete transformation. A price that felt heavier than any defeat. You ask us to become something we've never been. Rovak said quietly. No, the human delegate replied. We ask you to remember what you once were before power blinded you. How do we begin? Rovak asked. The central platform rose slightly. Beneath it, a crystalline device hovered. A sphere of swirling data. This is the unconcordant protocol. The voice said. It is a seed. Plant it within your empire. It will not control you. It will awaken those among your people who are ready. They will lead the transition, not by force, but by voice. Rovak stared at it. What if we reject it? The answer was cold. Final. Then you will be left behind. And the galaxy will move on without you. A moment of silence passed again, but this one was not heavy. It was full of possibility. Hope. Or ruin. The choice was his. He stepped forward, reached out and took the sphere. Light burst through the chamber, but no one flinched, because this was the moment they had been waiting for, the return of a long-lost civilization to the future it had refused for centuries. The return to Zephrian space was nothing like the departure. When Commander Rovak Fail stepped off the Terran vessel onto the docking platform of the Imperial High Citadel, the atmosphere was tense enough to warp steel. Hundreds of Imperial officers in ceremonial armor flanked the hangar walls. No weapons drawn, but none relaxed. They watched him like a man who had walked into a fire and somehow come back with his skin untouched. And in his hands, he carried the unconcordant protocol, a sphere of living data, glowing softly with a light that seemed to breathe. High Admiral Norix waited in the center of the chamber, flanked by members of the Imperial Council. Their faces were stone, but their eyes betrayed confusion and fear. Commander, Norix said, each syllable deliberate. You've returned. Rovak met his gaze. I have. Where are their demands? He held up the sphere. They brought no ultimatums, only a choice. A murmur moved through the chamber. What is that? One of the counselors asked. Rovak answered plainly. A seed, a transformation. If we accept it, we begin a process that changes everything. Our fleet, our laws, our place in the galaxy. Norix stepped forward. You brought this infection to our capital? Rovak's expression didn't flinch. I brought hope. They've given us a chance to join something greater, something we never even knew existed. And if we refuse? Another counselor asked. Rovak single quotes as voice grew quieter. Then we become relics, alone, eventually irrelevant. We are the Zephrian Empire, Norix growled. We do not kneel. Rovak took a step closer, holding the sphere between them. Neither do they. But they have no need to kneel, because they already won, not through battle, not through death, through patience, and through power you can't even begin to understand. He turned slowly, addressing all those gathered. They have fleets that see gravity as a tool, minds that rewrite energy like language. They didn't attack us. They didn't destroy our worlds. They could have, but they didn't. They waited for someone in this empire to understand what they were offering. And you think that's you? Norix snapped. Rovak didn't answer. Instead, he turned and placed the unconcordant sphere on the central command pedestal. The moment it touched the surface, the lights of the room dimmed. But not with threat. With unity. The data within the sphere unfolded. Maps, histories, technologies, philosophies, not given as commands, but as invitations. Knowledge. Truth. The light passed from the pedestal to the room itself. The walls shimmered. Consoles activated. Ancient codes embedded in the Imperial systems responded to the sphere's presence, and suddenly, they could all see it. The lie. The Empire had always taught that it stood at the pinnacle of civilization. But now, before them, bloomed an entire galaxy of alliances, voices, shared governance, harmony not built by fear, but by choice. This, Rovak said quietly, is the world beyond war. Norik stepped forward, his face pale. What happens if we begin this process? Then we are not erased, Rovak replied. We evolve. We grow. And maybe, for the first time in 500 years, we become worthy of what lies beyond our borders. The room was still. Then, slowly, the Emperor himself stood from his high seat. His voice was quiet, tired, but clear. How long? 50 years, Rovak said, to dismantle the conquest systems, to free the subjugated worlds, to reform our doctrines. They will guide us, but they will not rule us. And if we fail? Rovak looked up at him. Then the stars forget we ever existed. The Emperor closed his eyes. Then nodded once. Begin. The chamber erupted not with cheers, but with the electric silence of history turning a page. The transformation began that day. And over the years, the Empire changed. Slowly. Painfully. Beautifully. The war fleets were not disarmed. They were repurposed. Ships once built to destroy now delivered medicine, rebuilt shattered worlds. Escorted diplomats instead of dread. Worlds once crushed under imperial boots were invited into a council, not of submission, but of equality. Not all accepted. Some refused. Some broke away. But many stepped forward. The Empire became something new, and Rovak Fail became something more than a soldier, became the bridge between what had been and what might still be. Decades later, he stood once more aboard a Terran ship, watching new stars pass across the VIEWPORT. This time, there were no barriers. This time, he was not alone. Ambassadors from 17 species stood beside him, and behind them young Zephrian students, born into a future where war was not the first answer. We almost missed this, Rovak said softly. The human delegate beside him smiled. But you didn't, and that's what mattered. He looked out at the stars. So many of them. So much left to learn. So much still to heal. But now, the Empire had found its place among them. Not as conquerors, but as companions.